This presentation and content are solely for educational purposes and use, not for commercial distribution or sale. Information contained in this presentation may be copyrighted. A wide variety of information has been collected in an effort to explore the issues or topics reviewed. The opinions presented in the content have been edited due to production or research limitations. We attempt to represent a diverse and fair worldview of the information with limited bias. Our vision is to offer the following information for independent consideration and feedback from the global community. This content is believed to be allowed to the Title 17, U.S.C. Section 107 of the United States Copyright Law. This presentation was produced and directed by the Clayton, CRC Research Consultancy. It is for the benefit of the communities it serves, and to inform, raise awareness, and educate people with open minds about a range of global environmental issues. The Clayton Research Consultancy, a public service corporation. Leaders in education, research, global innovation, and change. This presentation was created by Dr. Kirk Marshall Clayton for the purpose of raising the awareness of the clear and present risk to the black athletes of Louisiana. He argues that the window to recapture and preserve their history is closing. Dr. Clayton warns that once this occurs, a significant era of relevance in Louisiana's sports history will be lost to future generations of young black athletes. American black history will then be lost forever. If you care about this, then please take the next few minutes to watch this presentation. What is presented is a brief background that covers several facts that support Dr. Clayton's claims. Taken collectively, this information supports and guides his initiatives to correct this situation. He outlines a brief history of what has come to pass in the state of Louisiana. The information clearly outlines events that have resulted in erasing numerous critical achievements of the state's American black athletes. Next, he identifies his purpose and intentions by calling the people of the great state of Louisiana to act now to correct past injustices. He identifies what has gone wrong. He introduces what he believes represents the challenges his initiatives involve by re-establishing this segment of black history. In fact, it is one of his goals to ensure the accomplishments of the state's black athletes are installed in the state and national archives. He then announces how he is to address each of the challenges by presenting a plan of action. This plan represents a total of 3 simple stages. These are discussed later in this presentation. Dr. Clayton argues the time for black athletes and their stakeholders to pick up this cause and to act is now. Given this, the presentation is intended to inspire interest and raise a passion among the people of Louisiana to get involved immediately. Dr. Clayton states that a critical piece of black American heritage is about to be lost forever. If this is allowed, thousands of young black Americans will never know the truth about their forefathers' contributions to sports in America. In effect, this goodwill and opportunity to salute them will be removed from history. I argue, the time to correct this is now. Get involved in this and save our children from continuing despair. The following presents an overview of the discussion points Dr. Clayton intends to cover. A background is offered that explains how organizational co-opting occurred to both of the athletic organizations. What he means when he states that, "We are all white now." He identifies what he refers to as the glory years, and what happened afterward. Then, he restates why now is the right time to call the people of the great state of Louisiana to action. Next, Dr. Clayton discusses what he means by stating that he intends to gain empowering recognition. Finally, in this segment he touches on what he intends to accomplish in stage 1 of his initiatives. Moving forward, what was the original I-LIALO? What was the original I-LIALO? Why did the I-LIALO exist? Why did the I-LIALO exist? What were the primary goal and objectives of each? What recognition is each attempting to gain? What can be done about it? Why is this important now? Challenges ahead. A three-staged plan, call to action. The original I-LIALO and I-LIALO organizations were reformed by other interests as different organizations after 1970. Dr. Clayton intends to inspire some of the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO members to recall and remember the original organizations. He calls this effort the Invisible I-LIALO and I-LIALO initiatives. A central purpose of the two initiatives is to reclaim and recognize the original ownership, heritage, mission, and luster of both groups. The change directly impacted the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. The I-LIALO and I-LIALO operated between 1929 to 1969. However, blacks were not allowed to compete with whites in the South, including Louisiana. Sports in Louisiana became equal and separate under the same banner. Given the environment, all black records were to be discarded and forgotten. The actions taken after 1969 ignored necessary revisions to the records. As a result, the records did not distinguish between accomplishments between white and black athletes. In effect, this change made black and white athletes the same. The change led the inference that black and white athletes were all white now. Black participation in the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO were only a memory in the minds of a few blacks now. Clayton, 2001. It's as if you were never born. No records of a black athlete's contribution to Louisiana's sporting history can be located or generated. Why? Presently, if you ask a Louisiana sports personality, what is or was the I-LIALO or the I-LIALO? You may get a blank stare. Or, perhaps get a question in return. What are you talking about? A call to action for Louisiana's Negro Black Americans and African Americans is needed to recall, recognize, and preserve the heritage and contributions of the I-LIALO and I-LIALO black athletes for the period between 1929 and 1969. Dr. Clayton is cataloging as much information as possible about the community's secondary high school so as to capture who the members were in the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO from the beginning. This research is intended to reconstruct black athlete records and contributions between 1929 to 1969, when the schools were integrated in 1970. This coincides with the demise of all the records associated with the experience of attending high school as we knew it during this period. The invisible I-LIALO and I-LIALO buck stops here. Dr. Clayton considers this initiative to be his last effort to document his and the larger community of black athletics in the I-LIALO and I-LIALO as they contributed significantly to Louisiana's Negro Black American history and sports. Our black African American youth are depending on us to let them know where they came from and appreciate how exceptional their forefathers were in the I-LIALO and I-LIALO. Further, the next generation needs this to appreciate who they are and can be. Clayton, 2001. Dr. Clayton states that while he has been honored for achievements by several organizations, I-LIALO as an organization, and other prominent athletes, remain largely overlooked by historians and sports fans in the state of Louisiana. Despite this, the Louisiana Sugar Bowl's Greater New Orleans Sports Hall of Fame inducted Dr. Clayton in 1996. Equally important, Dr. Clayton was honored by the I-LIALO in 1966 as the Track Athlete of the Year in Louisiana. Given this, Dr. Clayton argues many of I-LIALO's top-performing athletes are not gaining empowering recognition. This should and can stop here and now. Such recognition is critical to restoring and paying forward the true heritage of I-LIALO and I-LIALO black athletes. This action is needed not only in Louisiana, but it serves to plant the seeds of appreciation for the accomplishments of black athletes throughout America as Louisiana's best become dispersed across this great nation. Clayton, 2019. Presently, I-LIALO and I-LIALO as separate entities with associations to the former member high schools, have not been memorialized in any of Louisiana State's historical museums or halls of fame. No banners, plaques, not anything. Dr. Clayton sent more than 24 letters of inquiry to the LHSAA, the Louisiana Trust for Historic Preservation, LTHP, and the Louisiana Black Publishers Association, LBPA, and the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, LSHOF, in Natchitoches, Louisiana, asking for their timely support. None of the organizations supported the notion of adopting any form of recognition for the I-LIALO or the I-LIALO. Further, they indicated no inclination to work with him in support of this initiative. This same disposition was found to be true of many other entities in the state that are presently involved with other Louisiana historical preservation initiatives. As of August 2020, little or no interest has been forthcoming. What was the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO? Why should the I-LIALO and I-LIALO be recognized? What are the primary goals and objectives? Renewing commitments, implementation, stage 2 of 3. Why is this important now in Louisiana? The original I-LIALO and I-LIALO restated, the Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Organization, I-LIALO, and Louisiana Interscholastic and Literary Association, I-LIALO, were institutions that were started and remained active between 1929 to 1969. The organizations continued to be active before the era of integration, a time when both organizations were administered and operated by the Louisiana Negro African American High School Athletics Association. Dr. Clayton is calling the renewal of the I-LIALO and I-LIALO organizations now. He argues, no one did more to inspire him and his fellow athletes at the time, and that this kind of support, encouragement, and development of young black athletes is largely absent today in our communities. Clayton, 2020. In fact, nobody did more than the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO organizations for an entire race of people. Clayton, 2019. When I ask for something like this, I'm not asking for money that benefits me. I am asking for funds to accomplish this initiative. I'm trying to get the complete history of the black athlete installed into the Hall of Fame in Louisiana. It is critical to include the recognition and records of I-LIALO and I-LIALO and all the schools that were a part of each inducted into a Hall of Fame in Louisiana. So, a record of their existence is complete, and the people who developed these great originations are properly recognized and remembered. Clayton, 2020. The following has been extracted from the Internet pertaining to the Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Organization, 1950 to 1970, Wikipedia, 2020. On the website, no history of either of the two organizations were reported. Internet searches do indicate that the Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Association, I-LIALO, in South Louisiana, and I-LIALO in North Louisiana were both created for black high schools in 1935, after a merger of the two regional interscholastic organizations. Although black schools were known to claim state championships prior to 1950, these claims had apparently become somewhat mythical in nature. In 1950, after rechristening itself as the Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Organization, I-LIALO, it openly worked with the LHSAA to restructure itself from a coordinating body into more of a governing body with stronger rules and enforcement power. After 1950, the organization also began formally sponsoring football championships in the process. The I-LIALO and I-LIALO were eventually merged into the LHSAA after the 1969 season, as part of desegregation efforts in the New South. However, the LHSAA is apparently in possession of few archival records from the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO organizations. Let me not die ingloriously and without some struggle. But let me first do some great things for the great state of Louisiana and all the American people that shall be held in the memories, and told among all the races in Louisiana and America thereafter. Clayton Homer, 2015. Given this, Dr. Clayton's rebirthing of I-LIALO and I-LIALO or his initiatives, I-LIALO, are based on identifying a renewing set of primary goals and objectives. Dr. Clayton's initiative includes renewing, gaining recognition and empowerment for not only the black athletes of the past, but to establish a new foundation for black youth to gain a greater appreciation of the contributions of their forefathers. Gain the appropriate approval and organizational charter amendments necessary to support Dr. Clayton's I-LIALO and I-LIALO initiatives, I-LIALO. Gain recognition and placement of the organization in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Gain recognition and placement in all of the state of Louisiana's historical institutions. Re-establish the sense of pride and heritage that is unique to blacks in the state of Louisiana. National attention and a shift of focus towards central recognition of black American civil rights, national heritage, and contributions are occurring now. Gaining recognition and preserving the heritage, memory and legacy of a vital, historic, groundbreaking organization when few people remember it. Once established, stay on course with the I-LIALO and I-LIALO missions. The mission is to have the I-LIALO and I-LIALO placed in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. I'm doing this so that these organizations that did so much for so many, at a time when sports was still segregated, can regain the recognition each is due. In addition, these organizations once again can be capable of doing many more great things for all youth in the great state of Louisiana now, and into the 22nd century. The plan. Dr. Clayton is generating renewed national interest as he pushes numerous Louisiana state historical entities to recognize and honor the long-gone Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Organization, I-LIALO, and Louisiana Interscholastic Athletics and Literary Association, I-LIALO. Again, these organizations operated between 1929 to 1969. Before the era of integration, they administered and operated Louisiana Negro African American high school athletics. To act now while Black Lives Matter, BLM, in the South and the rest of the nation are focused on black issues that need to be addressed. There is a need for the Louisiana High School Athletic Association, LHSAA, not to continue to relegate the Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Organization, I-LIALO, and Louisiana Interscholastic and Literary Association, I-LIALO, in the state of Louisiana. Instead, now is the time in Louisiana's sport history to relent and recognize both organizations as viable for the Negro-Black communities statewide. With that in mind, a few well-deserving high school student athletes in the great state of Louisiana can be recognized. Once this is accomplished, young black athletes today can be nominated and inducted into the National High School Sports Hall of Fame. Remember, the only way a high school athlete can be considered for nomination in the National High School Hall of Fame is for their name to be submitted and recognized by the state's governing sports body. In Louisiana, after the 1960s, that organization was the LHSAA, not the I-LIALO or I-LIALO. From all my research, the I-LIALO and the I-LIALO were created by the LHSAA to keep blacks from competing with whites in Louisiana. However, these organizations had no voting power or real meaning in the sports history of great state of Louisiana. It's time these serious injustices and oversights of the exceptional Negro or black athletes representing Louisiana in the 1960s be recognized and enshrined in the hallowed sports halls of fame in the state of Louisiana in 2021. This state is a sportsman's paradise. The I-LIALO and I-LIALO, they are a part of Louisiana's sports history, but it's been forgotten. Potential partners and stakeholders starts with identifying all I-LIALO and I-LIALO schools. All I-LIALO and I-LIALO colored Negro-Black schools in the state of Louisiana from 1896 to 1969 can be located on the website listed on the following slide. Dr. Clayton, a member of an I-LIALO and I-LIALO team, developed and implemented this free website in 2015. Potential partners and stakeholders, the following website has a plethora of facts, information, images, and photographs during the era of the original I-LIALO and I-LIALO. Website title: African American High School Graduates in Louisiana before 1970. The website contains additional information about Dr. Clayton under the subtitle, Orleans and East Baton Rouge Parishes. Let's take a moment. While the Black Lives Matter (BLM) movement has national focus to advance our cause on additional issues that complement the movement, this is a great time to take the knee off the neck of two great organizations. To remember when it was exceptional to be Negro-Black in America, and to restore the memories and presence of the I-LIALO and I-LIALO organizations in the great state of Louisiana. Dr. Clayton is pushing numerous state historical entities to recognize and honor the long-gone Louisiana Interscholastic Athletic and Literary Organization, I-LIALO, and I-LIALA. Before the era of integration, the I-LIALO and I-LIALA administered and operated African American high school athletics and ensured the recognition of all successful strides made by Negroes and Blacks in Louisiana before 1970. Identify partners that appreciate the importance of the I-LIALO's and I-LIALA's histories for posterity and not for financial gain. With this in mind, we can sustain the heritage of Black athletes and others recognized by the two organizations from 1929 to 1969. Generate a need to continue to research and contribute to the communities of interest that are associated with I-LIALO and I-LIALA in the great state of Louisiana. The following provides information about the author of these initiatives, his background and leadership experience. A sampling of a few of Dr. Clayton's published works. The I-LIALO and I-LIALA initiatives are about passing the baton to our future generations. I cannot imagine anything more critically important towards the preservation of Black heritage and our community. Dr. Clayton wishes to thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. He asks that you feel free to contact him through his LinkedIn account to start a continuing dialogue about his initiatives. Although his initiatives are focused on Black athlete recognition in the state of Louisiana, he is open to broadening the discussion to those that wish to explore starting similar initiatives in other regions in the U.S. Again, thank you for your time and interest. The Clayton Research Consultancy, a public service corporation. Leaders in education, research, global innovation, and change.